Hello, thank you for tuning in. This is Patrick Jaguar, and you've landed on the Cosmic Alchemist Astrology YouTube channel. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you to everybody who watches this channel consistently, likes, subscribes, comments, shares. Doing all of those things are very helpful to this channel. The better this channel does, the more videos I can make, the better quality videos I can make. So thank you to everybody who does that. If you've not done any of the above, I ask you to consider doing so. So let's talk about some astrology. So in this video, this will be my monthly, so my July 2023 astrology video. So this is going to be an exciting month. It keeps getting more exciting. It's definitely going to get more exciting every month until next July. So what's going on in July 2024? We are going to have America's Pluto return. Pluto takes about 246 years, 48 years to make a return, to go back to where it was. So America, United States of America, was born July 4th, 1776 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA. So Pluto will come back to the same degree for the first time since July 1776. This is going to be a big deal. And I think American society is really, it's going to reach its ultimate divide. Basically, bring about a rebirth and a renaissance of America, American values, what it means to be American. Other people will abandon America, and they're going to keep going down the masked, woke, needle-crafted, globalist, corporate communist road. I don't like to put things into black and white terms, but, that's pretty unavoidable. So things are going to keep getting very interesting until then, and even beyond then, because the world is basically in sort of a reset mode. So I'm always saying it's getting more interesting. Well, this is going to be an interesting month. So what's been going on lately, especially since this eclipse in Aries back at, what was that, end of April? That solar eclipse. That is, that did a lot to rattle leadership around the world, and we haven't had good leaders in a long time. We have a bunch of globalist puppets. None of their agendas are working. They're failing. They're collapsing, both personally and their agendas are collapsing. So it's a very exciting time. So I have to remind people, again, don't get stuck in your paranoid fantasies about Armageddon, end of the world, apocalypse, Jesus coming with the 4 horsemen. The world never ends. That is a Judeo-Christian construct. Time is cyclical. So a cycle ends and a new cycle begins. That's what we're going through. That's why the world looks and just feels and seems and acts so insane right now. One cycle is ending and another is beginning. So the globalism cycle that kicked off, I would say in 1929, that's ending. And as I mentioned in my live video about the Titan sub that was attempting to explore the Titanic, really the sinking of the Titanic, which was an engineered event, that was sort of globalism's kind of first shot fired. And then in 1929, when they caused the Great Depression, they really started getting things rolling. And by the end of World War II, the globalist one world order was implemented with the United Nations. Now all that's falling apart. The world is going to be more local and more regional. And there will be competing empires. There won't be one big empire. So America was the military muscle for this globalist corporate communist one world order that uses the UN as a front. Well, the wave has reached the high water mark and it's falling apart. So the UN's going to lose authority. NATO, I think, is going to fall apart. And I think a lot of countries around the world are going to break up because the central governments, the federal governments, aren't really representing the people. So we live in exciting times. So, be prepared for unexpected, disruptive things to happen, but check your paranoid fantasies at the door, because those are addictions. Because again, dying in some Armageddon apocalypse, second coming of Jesus, is actually easier than getting a life and figuring out what the purpose of your life is, and using your intuition to understand what the purpose of your life is, and then setting your life in order the way you want it. That is much more difficult than dying in some second coming apocalypse. So fear is a serious addiction, and paranoid fantasies are serious addictions. So the world is in the very beginnings of a rebirth, of a renaissance, especially the Western world. I can speak for the Western world much better than I can for any other part of the world because I'm a Westerner. Genetically, racially, ethnically, tribally, linguistically, culturally, I'm a man of the West. Yeah, I have a Y chromosome, so I am a man of the West. Can't really argue with that. So, in my opinion. So yeah, things are going to get more exciting. Now, focusing on July here, we're going to see leaders around the world, so-called leaders, are going to be on the run. There's a lot of different things going on in the astrology that are signaling that. And I think with what we're going to be seeing on the world this month, for the rest of the year, for the next several years, France is a good example. So if you haven't been following the news, recently in France, a 17-year-old boy who was on track to become a career criminal was shot by French police. So he'd never been arrested or convicted, but he had been an accessory to multiple car thefts. And that's a big business in France with a small amount of the Arab immigrants in France, is that they'll steal cars and then they get loaded onto ferries and taken to North Africa. So, we're talking like places like Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and once anything's stolen, including people, gets to Africa, it vanishes. So he was on track for this. And what had happened was, this time he stole the car. He was pulled over by French police at a traffic stop. He was resisting arrest, running his mouth, and then he sped away and he got shot. So this is very unfortunate that this happened, but he brought it upon himself. And so since then, a small minority, a small number of the Arab North African immigrant community in France, along with, probably just Antifa, regular French people, these little Antifa brats, have been rioting, burning businesses, burning buildings, just engaging in, what people call unemployed behavior. So what the globalists are trying to do is they're trying to pull off a George Floyd scenario in France in order to make everything more woke and more politically correct. Well, it's not going too well because the kid's grandmother has been talking to the media and she's been telling people, stop rioting, stop looting, stop burning things. So his family's not even playing into this bullshit. And, neither are the French people. So there are French people whose communities are being attacked by rioters and looters going out there with baseball bats, beating the shit out of the rioters. So this is very encouraging because Western people, after 1,700 years of Christianity, need to get back their spines. They need to get back their self-esteem and their ability to defend themselves. And this is happening. So all around the world, people are going to realize they need to defend themselves, their families, their children, who all over the Western world are trying to be included in all kinds of weird sexual drag queen, pride shows. And nothing against gay people. I have members of my family who are gay. They're great, upstanding citizens. There's just pride is being used as a vehicle to groom children by a very small fringe minority. So I have to be clear on that. So, but the point is, yes, people in the Western world need to come back to common sense, and they are coming back to common sense. And they need to stand up for themselves, protect themselves, their families, their loved ones, their communities. And it's happening. It's coming back. So, very cool. And all the while, the globalists in power they're falling. They're literally falling apart and crumbling. And there are some milestones this month where we're really going to see that. So this is very cool. Mostly the biggest events this month, we have, I would say on July 17th, we've got a new moon, 0 degrees Cancer. That's right on the cardinal cross. So that's all about initiating changes. And then it's in the lunar mansion of Artemis. Artemis is one of the faces of the triple goddess. So you have the triple goddess. There's one in the heavens, so Selene or Luna, the moon goddess, and then you have the goddess on earth, who is Artemis, the huntress, and then in the underworld, the goddess is Persephone. So the important thing, the interesting thing about Artemis is a protector, a protectress of the working class, of just we the people. She's not a respecter of persons. She doesn't care what your social status is, how much money you have. She doesn't care if you're stealing things and burning buildings down because, your tribe has been subjected to injustice in the past. She doesn't care. She has no affirmative action. She has no preferences. So if you're dicking off and you're acting like a wacko, she's not going to have, there are no special circumstances. So that's a good thing. And then the other big event really is the, two more. You've got a Venus retrograde, 4 degrees, sidereal Leo. So again, sidereal. Ideal and sidereal astrology. I don't do tropical. Tropical is a theoretical zodiac. It just happens to be popular. Tropical astrology, it's a valid astrology system, but it's also church astrology. It's a corruption brought about by the Christian church in the early Middle Ages. So I don't use it, but it's valid in its own right. So anyway, Venus goes retrograde, 4 degrees Leo. It's in the lunar mansion of Persephone, so that other face of the goddess, just like Artemis. And conjunct within 2 degrees of the fixed star Regulus. So that's a big one. And there are some inconjunctions with Venus, and there's some inconjunctions with Mars. So, yeah, some big stuff going on. We're going to get into those specifics. And then the other thing, too, was that retrograde Venus and Mercury are going to have a conjunction at that same degree. 4 degrees sidereal Leo, with those inconjunctions aspecting on it. So basically what this is going to do, Leo is the sign of rulers, royalty, executive figures. Venus is wealth, but Venus is also protection, and it's our feeling of ease and our feeling of pleasure. So basically that is getting removed from the rulers and royals and executive figures in this world. And it's going to be getting aspects from Pluto and Neptune. So basically rulers are going to be uncomfortable because you have this 6 and 8 house relationship with Pluto and Neptune. They're basically the karma for them to lose their comfort because they're caught being deceptive. Those karmas are activating. So they're going to get caught in all kinds of scandals this month. So that's very encouraging. So big elite globalist government scandals still. I think the Biden scandals are going to keep building, and his handlers may put him to sleep, before he ever reaches the election next year. I don't know. It's possible. And the other thing is too is Joe Biden's a tough one to predict because I think he's like Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was dead in December 2001, about 3 months after the 9/11 attacks. And I think this is also popular with Joe Biden. He may have been gone some time ago. And when you factor in CGI and mask and disguise technology, there's a TED Talk out there given by one of CIA's former directors of disguise. And she lays out how in the early 90s, the disguise technology using masks was at basically a Hollywood level. So I don't want to go too much into that. That's too much to cover. But yeah, he's a tough one. But yeah, more Biden scandals, fucking scandals galore everywhere. I'm sure Stumblebum Trudeau will have something else coming out about him. And, more scandals about how Chinese government has been influencing all kinds of Western leaders through the World Economic Forum. So, yeah, just more of the shit's going to be coming out. And we're going to be shown how biased and how deceptive the media has been. So, let's get into the individual days here. I don't want to go too long. I'm already like 15, 16 minutes in. Okay, so we start the month, July 1st. And, the beginning of a month, a month it's basically an idea. It's real, but it's just an idea, you know what I mean? Because the calendar months don't follow the lunar months. So, but I think the first of a month sets a tone for how the rest of it's going to go. So, July 1st, what do we have? We've got Venus square Uranus. So, what we have here, you've got Venus at 27 Cancer, and then you get Uranus 27 Aries. So, cardinal signs, 4 signs away, 90 degrees away. So, this is a tense aspect. It's not an aspect that creates harmony. So what we have here is Cancer is the sign of emotion. And Aries is the sign of leadership in the sense of being the leader, taking initiative. It's also the sign of what goes on in your head, thinking. So, this isn't a surprise. The things going on in our heads are basically shaking and disrupting our emotions. Cancer. So Aries, what goes on in the head. Cancer, the emotions. It's what goes on in your heart. Uranus is a disruptor. Uranus is a rebel. Uranus is the earth shaker. So, yeah, the earth shaker is reaching into our hearts, Cancer, and basically, disturbing our feelings, really. The other thing, too, is that for America, Aries is the 5th house of politics, the performance art of politics. And Cancer is the 8th house of unexpected. And yeah, Cancer is the 8th house of unexpected changes. So you do have leadership talking about how all these big changes they're going to make. And it's basically just, they're kind of like blowing up our party here. Things that government does can possibly hurt the economy. So, yeah, that kind of gives a feeling for the start of the month here. It's like when President Biden's talking about making it more difficult for automakers to sell gasoline-powered cars. If they actually do this shit, it'll cripple the hell out of the economy. So that's kind of the idea. So you got things like that going on. And then, too, on this first day of July, you have Mars, which is at 0 degrees Leo, in conjunct with Neptune and Pluto. So And in conjunction, again, it's when planets are 30 degrees off in opposition. So in opposition is when two planets are 180 degrees apart. They're facing each other from opposite sides of the zodiac. Now, when planets are 150 degrees off, or what is it, 210 degrees off, they don't communicate well. So when you get three planets in alignment like this, it causes just a lot of crazy in the world. So you've got Mars. Mars is the anger, the warrior energy, the initiative, the get up and go, the impulse to build, to destroy, all that stuff. It is being aspected, but it's not in good communication with, again, Neptune, which is over in Pisces, which is its home. So Neptune is delusion, it's illusions, it's deception. It's also awakenings, and it's in Pisces, it's home. So Pisces is divine revelations, but it's dreams, it's addictions. So it depends on where your consciousness is, where you meet that energy. And then Pluto it's in retrograde, it's 5 degrees sidereal Capricorn. It's in the lunar mansion of Natura. Natura, goddess of nature that seeks to bring things to balance and can't be stopped. That's just what she does. So, and then where Mars is, it's Leo. So again, Leo, the sign of Leo, sign of royals, rulers, executive figures. So basically, rulers are feeling very uncomfortable. They're sort of karma's being served up to them. They've done things in the past, and now they have to balance the account, and they have to pay for the deceptions that they've been running for so long. Not just elected leaders, but the corporate leaders behind them who don't go anywhere, who stay in their positions. So, yeah, this is like the puppets, the performance art puppets. Again, Leo is the performance art of politics. Getting these puppets getting disrupted, feeling very uncomfortable because they're getting caught running a bunch of deception. So it's a good start for a month. So then we go into the full moon, July 3rd. I'm actually making this on July 3rd. The maximum for this full moon was, did I write that down? I did not write that time down. I'm not sure when it was, but I was feeling it yesterday. Made me go to bed really early. I was tired. I kind of had a headache. So kind of an intense full moon. So this full moon, it is 17 degrees sidereal Sagittarius. So it is in a lunar mansion called Ceto or Sato. Ceto is Venus ruled. Ceto is the mother of Medusa. So she was basically one of the Titans. She was the wife of Phorcys. So Phorcys and Ceto, they're basically what you'd call sea monsters. They were these like giant, like leviathans, these giant creatures that lived under the ocean, mythologically. And they gave birth to, various different sea creatures and sea monsters. And they're actually the parents of Medusa and her sisters. So, mythology is all about psychology. So the deep ocean, that's the unconscious mind. The sea monsters in the deep ocean are the forces within the unconscious mind. And these forces in the unconscious give birth to other forces. So one way you can look at Medusa is the karmic axis. So in the Hellenistic Asterian astrology, which Alexander the Great and his priests put together, which is a mixture of Babylonian astrology, Greek Hellenistic astrology, and Egyptian astrology, the Rahu Ketu axis is looked at as the head of Medusa and the body of Medusa. So Rahu being the head of Medusa and Ketu being the body. So that's another way to look at that. So the idea of, and again, the Rahu Ketu axis, that's your karmic axis. Ketu is your past life karma. It's what you've mastered in past lives. It's where you're coming from. Rahu is your present life karma. It's what you're here to do and to experience and to learn in this life. So this karmic axis, this body and head of Medusa, it was born from these titans, these sea monsters in the deep unconscious. So the idea there is that our unconscious mind gives birth to our desires, and our desires are our karmas. Really, the best synonym for karma is desire. You desire to have an experience, you have it, you create a debt. There will be consequences that you will have to balance in the future. So that is why Phorcus and Ceto are Medusa's parents. The unconscious gives birth to our desires and to our karmas. So it's pretty neat. So the and then the fixed star that this is near is a star called Nunki, which is also Venus ruled. Venus ruled, and then the secondary rule is Mercury. So the lunar mansion Ceto, it deals with wanting to help people, and it deals with learning, knowledge, a lot of these things that Sagittarius deal with. So, and then, the star Nunki, it deals with philosophy, spirituality, popularity, being beloved by all, it deals with leadership, military prowess, travelers, because Sagittarius is travel and pilgrimages, and it's fortunate for seafaring. So, pretty auspicious star, pretty good lunar mansion. So what does Sagittarius deal with? Sagittarius deals with belief systems, philosophy, spirituality, religion, learning, teaching, all that stuff. And the interesting thing, as an American, Sagittarius is the ascendant house of the United States of America. So this full moon, for the world, it's shedding light on belief systems. Because again, Sagittarius is belief systems and worldviews. So this is shedding a light on our belief systems, and it's giving us the ability to really look deep into our belief systems, into our own minds, and understand why is it that we believe what we want to believe. Because again, Ceto is this sea monster, this titan, this creature of the deep ocean. So pretty cool. And then, Venus has this sort of like harmonizing, protective, socializing energy. So this is really, I think, a full moon to just help us understand our belief systems and to reset our belief systems if we were operating under false assumptions. So pretty cool. And, it's a chance to be our own leaders rather than just taking in and regurgitating whatever comes out of the television, the radio, the Bible, the, woke NGOs. It's a chance to be your own leader instead of just doing that. Then July 8th, we have some sign changes. So Mercury goes to Cancer, Venus goes to Leo. So, Mercury and Cancer. Mercury is the intellect. Cancer is very emotional. So it's a time as Mercury transits Cancer to really understand what it is that we feel. And Cancer is also security, it's comfort, it's freedom, it's family. So to take a second look at those things and, reevaluate what our values are. And then Venus going into Leo. Venus it's in that lunar mansion Persephone, and it's It's not going to catch up with Mars, because Mars is at 4 degrees Leo, but it's kind of on its tail. And what Venus is doing, Venus has the function and the ability to basically calm and soothe Mars. So I think Venus has been keeping a lot of craziness in the world at bay. So when Venus goes retrograde, we may see things start ramping up. So yeah, so July 8th, we have those sign changes. And then we jump to July 17th. So not a lot of huge events this month, but the events that are happening astrologically are pretty potent. They're pretty powerful. Kind of more than meets the eye. So, okay. We go on to the new moon, July 17th. So that's a new moon, sidereal, 0 degrees Cancer. So this is a bit of a new moon to unpack, and the maximum for that new moon will be 2:30 in the p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so East Coast of America. So that's what? It's GMT minus 4 hours. So, again, new moon on the cardinal cross. So what's the new moon? New moon is a sun-moon conjunction. And the sun, moon, and the earth line up in such a way that the moon is in shadow. We don't see the moon. So the moon is the mind. So not just the intellect, but the intuitive, emotional consciousness, whereas sun is the soul. So when the moon gets darkened like this, the mind gets cut off from the light of the soul. So new moons can feel insecure. People can feel adrift. They can feel kind of purposeless, and they don't really know what to do with themselves. That can be the general sort of feeling during those. So, but new moons are also a way of resetting our mental energy. It's the darkening of the moon. So a way you can look at it, new moons have an affinity with the conception process. So the conception process takes place in a uterus. It's in the dark. And it's basically the dark portal from, which things are born. So what we can do on new moons, we can plant new seeds for things we want in our lives, new things we want in our lives. And it's a great time when, because the moon is not taking in new light and new information from the sun, from the soul, it's just time to take inventory of your feelings, because you're not getting overwhelmed by information and light from the soul. So good time to do that. So this new moon, 0 degrees sidereal Cancer, it's in the lunar mansion of Artemis. And that's a Jupiter-ruled lunar mansion. Well, Jupiter recently restarted the whole cycle. Jupiter came out of Pisces, went to Aries. So Jupiter was in a deep sleep in its home in Pisces. Now it's in Aries. So the priest is now doing the rituals and lighting the sacred fires and, ready to manifest things anew. Jupiter takes 12 years to go through the whole zodiac. So we have this 12-year Jupiter cycle. And Jupiter's the giver of gifts. So Jupiter just restarted the cycle, and Jupiter's the higher consciousness, and it's saying, okay, what do you guys want? And it's saying, oh yeah, I can help you make that. Well, let's do the work and get it done. So Jupiter's in a good place, and it's putting that energy into Artemis. Again, Artemis, it's that earthly representation of the triple goddess. So Artemis is a very interesting goddess. So goddess of the hunt. So really, from the ancient world, it was always said that temples were not to be built to Artemis, because Artemis's temple is just nature, forest. And so you can't, the idea is like you can't contain nature. And another thing too, it was always said that it causes misfortune to invoke Artemis. So Artemis is always there for us. Artemis is always there to help, the people, everyday people, the working class. But you don't call upon her. She just does what she does. So, and that's interesting because the globalists are working on this whole Artemis mission to take this Orion rocket and fly to the dark side of the moon to do God knows what. And, the moon missions in the 60s, they were called Apollo. Apollo is a very approachable, very accessible God who is always willing to help humanity, and you can invoke him and call upon him as much as you want. He's a sun god. He's a god of light. Kind of like Jesus was modeled after Apollo very largely, the Jesus myth. And I'm not diminishing Jesus by saying Jesus myth. I'm not saying, he's worthless, he has no power. Myths are more powerful than real people. So if you throw away the mythological Jesus, if you're a Christian, you're leaving a lot of power on the table. Because any real living person, you can find their misdeeds and you can find their indiscretions and, you can pop that balloon pretty easily. But myths are above all that. Myths are truer than the truth. So, so Apollo is very largely, Jesus is very largely modeled on Apollo. So it made sense naming these moon missions after Apollo 50 years ago because Apollo keeps humanity safe, keeps people safe. Naming a moon mission Artemis, not a very good idea. If they put people on that, could be very dangerous just because that's not something you do. Now, I think a lot of the Freemasons and NASA have retired at this point, so you basically just have a bunch of globalist, wokey kind of, techies running the show, and they don't really know this stuff. So, but anyway, a new moon in Artemis. So, 0 degrees Cancer, that is the portal, the gateway between Gemini and Cancer. So, Cancer, again, it's home, comfort, security. Gemini is thinking, communication. So the cusp between those two deals with both things, and it's like, okay, well, how do we think? How do we communicate? How do we teach people to be more secure, be more comfortable, have a better, just sense of ease and well-being? And, Artemis wants to help we the people to have all these things. So this new moon is basically about going out and getting it, because Artemis, being a huntress, she takes her bow and she goes hunting. She takes what she needs. She gets what she needs. So that's basically the cue to us. Now, also, this new moon is conjunct the fixed star Pollux. So Pollux is at 29 Gemini in sidereal. So Pollux is a Mars-ruled star. So who is Pollux? Pollux was a son of Zeus, and he was one of a pair of twins. So you have these two twins, Castor and Pollux. They had the same mother, but Castor his father was a mortal man, whereas Pollux's father was Zeus. So Pollux, grew up and lives among the gods of Olympus. Castor lived a mortal life, but was then raised to Olympus. He was basically deified. So, but they have very different personalities. So Castor, the mortal one, was very wise, very kind. And then Pollux was also a protector. He would also help people, but he was more violent. So he was known for being an excellent fighter, an excellent wrestler, an excellent boxer. He fought with his hands. So he wasn't as wise or, kind of as intelligent as his brother. Now, Castor and Pollux are the twins that Gemini is based on. And they have a lunar mansion called Dioscuri, which is in Aries. And the Vedic name is the Ashwinis. So the Dioscuri, or the Ashwinis, are these two twins. And what they do is, when people invoke them, when people call upon them, they help people. So, yeah, that's kind of a rundown with Pollux. So Pollux is warlike, symbolizes warriors, leaders. Can be easy to anger. And it can either give courage or a lack of courage, depending on birth time. So the maximum for this new moon here in East Coast of America, it's 2:30 p.m. So the birth time for that new moon is during the day. So, it takes courage away. But depending on where you are in the world, different meanings. Pollux can also be merciless, cruel, can have criminal tendencies. And there can be a danger of violence. So inflicting violence or suffering from violence. Especially if it's a day birth, it deals with suffering from, receiving violence. So, and, since this new moon takes place at 0 Cancer, Cancer's emotional, this could cause a bit of an emotional boom. So basically, there could just be, an enhanced, heightened craziness here in the U.S. And just a day ago on Sunday, we're seeing in Washington, D.C. that there were, in the wee hours of the morning when businesses were closed, they were being, bombed with like Molotovs and stuff, Molotov cocktails. So could see more of this on the East Coast. But then on the other side of the world, when this takes place in the middle of the night, could be a great thing for those parts. So it just depends. But a great thing about Pollux gives the ability to overcome serious challenges. So that's really the bottom line with this new moon will help overcome serious challenges. Artemis helps us do that. So pretty neat. Okay. This is going to be a mouthful. We go into July 22nd. July 22nd, that's the day Venus goes retrograde. So again, Venus retrograde 4 degrees sidereal Leo, conjunct with the fixed star Regulus. So Regulus, ruled by Mars and Jupiter. Jupiter's secondary, Mars is primary. Regulus it's considered the royal star, the star of success, leadership, high social standing, all that stuff. Wealth, possibly. But it's the star of rulers, the star of royals, rulers, executive figures. It's very Leo. It's kind of like the heart of the lion. So, yeah, that's the general meaning with Regulus here. Now, Venus, again, 4 degrees is going to go retrograde. So Venus is a social planet, a planet of wealth, material comfort, social activity. It's going to go retrograde, conjunct Regulus, in Leo in the lunar mansion, Persephone. So I think this is going to be a hit to the comfort of rulers everywhere that are not behaving ethically. And they're going to lose their sense of comfort and their ability to just feel like they can do whatever the hell they want. So that is always good for us. Now, this lunar mansion, Persephone, is ruled by Ketu. And Ketu is, again, it's that body of Medusa. It's the body of the serpent. Helps us to release things. Helps us to cut things loose. And there's a very god or goddess of the underworld energy to Ketu, because Ketu liberates us from kind of the everyday world, and it also liberates us from our our journey in the 3D world, sends us back to the spirit world. So it's all about unburdening ourselves and cutting things loose that we don't need. So that lunar mansion ruled by Ketu is Persephone. So Persephone, this underworld persona of the triple goddess. So this goddess of the underworld, in the mythology, she gets married to Hades. She spends half the year in the underworld and then half the year on the surface of the earth. So it's a mythology on one level. It talks about the seasons, in the temperate regions, where you have 4 seasons and you have a shift in the seasons. Because when she goes in the underworld, you have winter. In the spring, when she comes to the surface of the world, you have the spring, and then the summer comes and all of the life on the surface of the earth flourishes. So that's one level. On the other level, she's a goddess of the underworld. So when souls go to the underworld, between lives, it's where they heal and recuperate. And the ruler of the underworld helps them to do that. So, and then too, Persephone is this force in the unconscious that helps our unconscious minds to heal and helps us to draw insight, to draw conscious insight out of the unconscious. So, very interesting mythological figure. So bringing all that energy to this Venus retrograde. Now, Persephone can be very benevolent and very helpful, or Persephone can get dark and very controlling. So this Venus going retrograde conjunct in this lunar mansion with the star Regulus, it's going to highlight for the people of the world even more that not all people in positions of power love you and care about you. This is going to highlight that for people extremely well, I think. A lot of people still believe this, that, the whole democratic process is all about them and they have all the power. And it's like, well, you do have all the power, but if you just watch television and you go vote in some election and, you don't pay attention to anything that's going on in the world, and you don't face the music and you don't face uncomfortable facts, then you don't have any power and you're giving your power away. So this Venus retrograde is going to help highlight all this. So there are a bunch of aspects wrapped up in all this. Let's look at those. So first off, you have a trine. So you got a trine going on. So Aries at 4 degrees, not Aries, Rahu, 4 degrees sidereal Aries, is looking at the Venus, 4 degrees sidereal Leo, from 120 degrees away, from 5 houses away. So trines are very harmonious. So Rahu is the trickster. Rahu is the kickstarter. Rahu is also a guardian of the working class, of just regular people. So Rahu is basically helping this Venus to do something new, to bring something new in, to be innovative, to help set things straight. And retrogrades are all about setting things straight. So retrogrades are a time of review. So this Venus is going to start at 4 sidereal Leo. It's going to go back into Cancer. So it's going to help us to review what the rulers are doing to our countries. Are they benefiting our countries, or are they selling them out to multinational corporations and banks? And Rahu is, Rahu wants to tell all the secrets in the world. That's what tricksters do. They reveal secrets. So other names for Rahu, you got Loki and Lucifer, and they deal with flashes of enlightenment, flashes of spiritual and intellectual brilliance and enlightenment. So Rahu is helping Venus to basically reveal these secrets about these rulers. And Venus is a protector. Yeah, everybody knows that Mars is a warrior planet. Mars is more of a conqueror. Venus is a protectress. So Venus is being helped by Rahu, the trickster, to reveal secrets about rulers. So this is very powerful. Now, on top of this, on this day of this retrograde, Venus is in the position that Mars was in when the month started. So when the month started, you had Mars at 0 Leo, so very close to where Venus goes retrograde. So starting the month, you had Mars in this whole in conjunction zone with Pluto and Neptune. So again, these in conjunctions, they are aspects of disharmony. So it's when a planet has, instead of having planets in direct opposition, 180 degrees, they're 30 degrees off. So one can be 150 degrees away, and then the other is 210 degrees away. So usually in an in conjunction, you just have two planets involved that are on roughly opposite sides. But you get something called a yod, or a 6-8 relationship, where there's three planets, and one planet is 8 houses away, and the other planet is 6 houses away. So you basically have a triangle. And so basically the communication between these three planets, it's not very good, and then it's a relationship that brings in disharmony. So when you get these yods, when you get these 6-8 relationships, basically they get unstable, they get confused, it just creates a lot of chaos. Yods are called the finger of God, so it kind of like rattles things loose and, shakes things up in order to set things straight. So like I said, you have Neptune and Pluto. So Neptune, it can either be revelations and epiphanies, or it can be delusions and deception. Depends where your level of consciousness is. Pluto is all about the soul's evolution, and it deals with karmas, and it deals with uncomfortable facts that must be faced. And we don't have a choice in facing that music. So Venus is trying to give away secrets, and then Pluto is basically making all of us deal with facing those secrets, facing these scandals that are coming out. And then there's Neptune. Neptune is also trying to bring the secrets out into the open. So some people will see them, some won't. Some people will just double down on the media narrative, on the the narrative that universities teach, all that kind of thing. So there'll be a lot of music to face with all this going on. Another thing that's going on this day, you have Pluto squaring the nodes, and this is going to, Pluto will be at this square degree between these two nodes for several days. So the nodes, again, Rahu and Ketu, the head and the body of the serpent. Pluto is directly in between. So Pluto is at 90 degrees to both of them, so directly in the middle. Because again, Rahu and Ketu are always 180 degrees apart. They're always in opposition. Pluto's directly in the middle. So basically, Pluto is making us pay off karmic debt, making us deal with things we don't want to deal with. So yeah, on or around the 22nd, that's a big day. Again, Pluto's in Natura, the goddess of nature that brings things back to balance. Pluto is telling the world, you have no choice but to come back to balance. Things are too insane, too out of balance, too woke, too consumerist, too virtual. We've got to bring common sense back. So, and then, Neptune is in Phorcus. Phorcus, again, is one of those, the father of Medusa, this creature of the deep. So, because again, Ceto is in Sagittarius, and then Phorcus is in Pisces. So, it's this force within the unconscious that conceives, helps give birth to our desires, our karmas. So, yeah, Neptune is also in retrograde in his lunar mansion Phorcus in Pisces, and is trying to say, look, stop avoiding what's going on and the truth of what these friggin' rulers are up to. So, big day, I think. We'll see. Again, Regulus is Mars ruled. Secondary rule is Jupiter. So, this could be, a day for rioting and all that shit. We'll see what happens, but definitely a day of media anger about all this new information that's coming out. I'm not a Donald Trump advocate, but Joe Biden's filthy. So is his family. He's been making a shitload of money off the overthrow of Ukraine that happened back in 2014, which was pulled off by the globalists and by the Nazi intelligence networks that have been there for 80 years. He's been making a shitload of money ever since all that stuff got started. And they're basically trying to pull off a regime change in Russia, just like they did in Iraq when Mr. Biden was a senator. Well, it's not going to happen. Again, that second Bolshevik revolution has already failed. These globalists I think they bribed the leader of Wagner, that Russian private military company. They bribed him to use his private army, the Wagner PMC, to undermine the Russian war effort in Ukraine, and then to attempt a coup in Russia. Well, all that shit failed. And, in 1917, when the globalists were working to get this one world corporate communist system started, they sent the communists, who they had groomed, into Russia to steal all the wealth of the Tsar and of the Russian Empire, and basically funnel it to places like, Switzerland and London and, probably even Wall Street. So they pulled it off once, but they failed this time. So that was like one of globalism's last big gambles, and they failed. So there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out about what these people are up to. Okay, let's move on to the last day I'm going to cover, July the 27th. So July the 27th, this Venus in retrograde will still be at 4 degrees Leo in the lunar mansion of Persephone, and conjunct the royal star Regulus. So Venus will be there, Mercury will conjunct this Venus. And so Mercury is the intellect, it's thinking, it's communication. And I think Mercury moving to this position is going to help Venus communicate about what these rulers have been up to, what these so-called leaders have been up to. So, and Mercury deals with the media because it rules Gemini. Gemini, symbolic of mass media. So Mercury will be helping Venus spill all the beans and tell the secrets. And then this trine from Rahu will still be perfectly cast on Venus, because, again, Venus, 4 degrees Leo, Rahu, 4 degrees Aries. So Rahu wants to tell all the secrets. So you get Venus retrograde, which is reviewing things, going back and reviewing, conjunct with Mercury, media, communication, thinking, with a trine, a harmonious trine from Rahu, 120 degrees away on them. It's going to be a lot of shit coming out into the media. And we're going to see more and more that we are not going back to the good old days of the Cold War, where so many people want to go back to, and they just want to be like, oh, can't we just go back to, when I could just shop and the politicians took care of everything? Nope. Now, also, Venus will still be within this in conjunction from Neptune and Pluto, like I was just talking about. So, Neptune and Pluto. Neptune is helping to uncover secrets, because Neptune is in Pisces, which is all hidden things. It's retrograde. It's going back and reviewing. And then Pluto is also retrograde in Capricorn, house of government, in the lunar mansion Natura, goddess of nature, which wants to bring things to balance. So, yeah, this is very rife for scandals here. And then Venus again is in that lunar mansion with Mercury of Persephone, the goddess of the underworld, is going to show you who you really are. It's going to show us all who we really are. We can't just live in, the Disneyland fashion show society anymore, where the experts and the politicians take care of everything and you just go to work and shop. Like, you're going to have to think about important things and understand how you relate to those issues. And you'll have to understand how to take your power back after not having it for many years or not ever having had it. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's an hour. Hell of a month. So thanks for tuning in, and you'll be seeing me. Have a good one.